Thank you everyone for joining us today. Sorry for the delay. Um, Having issues here loading the presentation. We'll go ahead and jump right in, obviously, since we are running out of time and would like to make best use of the time that our panel has so graciously given us. So let's jump right in and get into the best practices in prior art searching within biotechnology. Just to give you a little background of our team here at Legal Advantage. Myself, Amir Ahmed, I'm the senior patent analyst. Received my BS in biology from George Mason University, which was not so famous at the time, has gained a lot of interest since then. Spent almost 8 years at the patent office as a technical information specialist. The primary tasks there were to assist the patent examining corps locate prior art when they were not able to locate it for themselves, and also help train the patent examiners, the new hire patent examiners, into the prior art searching techniques. Obviously, a lot of them do their own searching using yeast and multiple resources that are available to them. So I was part of the team that led those classes for the new hires in terms of how they can set up a good strategy and conduct the search. Along with me is Jeff Sobek. He's our VP of Sales and Marketing. Received his bachelor's from Illinois Wesleyan and received his JD from John Marshall Law School. At this point, well over 22 years of sales experience in the technology marketplace. On to our panel, who have graciously provided us their time today. We'll start off with Wendy. And I'm waiting for the slide to change here for me.
Wendy there I am. Hello.
Hello, Wendy. Quite a vast array of experience. Received her master's in organic chemistry from Columbia, JD from Fordham University of Law School. Has led many different companies into their IP ventures. Served as general counsel and senior vice president for legal and intellectual property for Cinta Pharmaceutical Corp. Thank you, Wendy, for joining us today. Along with us as well is Eric Bleich.
Yep, Bleich. Hello, everyone.
From Corner Counsel. Received his master's in material science engineering from Johns Hopkins University and his JD from Brooklyn Law School. We've worked with Eric for quite a bit of time, and let me just say that the searches are all the whole vast type of searches that Eric is working with. Of course, he helps companies in every aspect of IP, litigation, prosecution, every different aspect that is available. Along with us as well is Tim Ducey from Shoemaker Seifert. Of course, the newest member of our group, received his master's in chemical engineering from the University of Wisconsin and his JD from the University of Houston Law Center. Tim is an upcoming star. So you've seen the name here. You will definitely be seeing a lot of Tim. We met him in Houston, I believe it was last year, very heavily involved in the Houston Intellectual Property Law Association. So thank you all for joining us today for our CLE. So we'll go ahead and get started. And if it's okay, if anyone in the that's attending today, if you have any questions, there is a text box on the right-hand side of your screen. Please feel free to send us the questions and we'll be happy to answer them for you. If you have any questions for our panel, we will be asking them the questions as well. So let's go ahead and jump right in. The way that you'll be receiving the CLE credit for attending today, just keep in mind that at this very moment, excuse me, the CLE has not been approved for credit as of yet. We have applied for it. And once we do have the approvals, we will send them out to you. In the meantime, we can send you the certificate of attendance for the CLE. So if you do follow the instructions here on the screen, where you can send us the verbal passphrase that we'll give you to our email address, search@legaladvantage.net, we will send you a certificate of attendance for the CLE today. So let us jump right in. We don't have a lot of time. We'll talk about the different search types, the different databases that are available. Won't be spending too much time on that, but then we will get into the crux of searching within biotechnology, some of the hurdles, some of the resources that are available. And of course, we do encourage to ask questions to our panel. They've graciously given us some of their time, and we would like to ask them some questions, of course, to give us some insights since they are the leaders in these fields. So let's jump right in with the different search types and search strategies. So of course, why would you conduct a search? Learning more about the field of the invention, focusing your claims, whether you're focusing them before you file or after receiving an office action from an examiner, then focusing your claims or amending claims from that point. Understanding the competition, what's out there in the market, or even avoiding patent infringement if you're looking to put a product on the market. Also, if you own a patent, you would want to conduct an infringement analysis to understand and see who's out there that is using your IP without your permission. And so in general, now these are not placed in order, obviously. We have prosecution, competitive business intelligence, and then litigation and market analysis is on the far right. But these are generally where most searches would fall into. They're either used for prosecution, which are the novelty searches, patentability searches, and accelerated examination. Then we have our competitive business intelligence of patent watching, seeing what's being published into the market or what's being published as applications or granted patents, who's entering a market. And then we have our litigation, obviously the state of the art, the freedom to operate, and validity and invalidity searches. So let's just get into each one really quickly. We should all be very familiar with what these type of searches are. But obviously the patentability search, as mentioned, is intended to verify the patentability or the novelty of what is invented or what the claims. So it's meant to go out and search for all relevant art that can be used as 102, 103. Single reference or combination obviousness of references. So of course, the scope includes all databases that are available, US patents, foreign patents, and non-patent literature as well. The next type of search is the validity and invalidity, the litigation type of searches. It seems that there's a little bit of a delay on my end. Are you experiencing that as well on your end? Okay. So the validity and invalidity obviously are to locate prior art that can invalidate a already issued patent. And so again, you're looking in all available resources to find any piece of art that could have invalidated the validity of the claims. And in this case, we're looking for either, again, single reference that hits on the claim and can invalidate that claim, or obviousness of putting multiple references together to invalidate the claims. Now, of course, one thing to keep in mind, very, very important here, is to locate and use art that is available or had been available prior to the publication or priority date of the patent that is being invalidated. So of course, the strategy for this type of search is to start off with understanding and deciphering which claims need to be invalidated. What are we going to target for invalidation? And then retrieving the file history of that patent, understanding what this patent went through while it was in prosecution, when it was applied for. And then going out to find art that is relevant, putting them all together in a matrix to show the validity and invalidity of the claims. Now, two different approaches when it comes to validating and invalidating patents. The conservative approach is to look for art that invalidates a specific claim at a time. The more liberal approach is to capture everything that's out there and report it to litigation teams in order for them to determine the relevancy. And then finally, this will be the competitive business analysis. So we've put together actually a landscape analysis that our team has put together for you. And the landscape analysis is usually provided in both written and graphical representations. Now, it depends on the scope of the search of what the interest is. It can either be for a single patent and the related patents, the patent claims, family members, or all related patents, or even a patent portfolio of a company to see what IP they hold, where they hold it, or in a larger scale, a technology or a sector. And so, of course, the search is intended to go out there and identify all the patents that are related in all the jurisdictions that are of interest. Landscape analyses are the most customizable, really, really intended and tailored to the needs of the study, what needs to be shown, what are we looking into. The results are usually broken down by assignees, hundreds of hours usually, a lot of hours put into these landscape analyses of throwing a large net, capturing many results, and then doing a lot of post-search analysis to be able to show what is really in those types of results. So we've put together a quick landscape analysis for you with regards to something that's very very relevant to our times today, and that is with antiviral drugs. And so we've gone in there and looked at who holds this IP in antiviral drugs, who's claiming antiviral drugs, what is the patent landscape for antiviral drugs. Obviously, for the obvious reasons right now with COVID-19, and that is being looked at as one of the options that's available to help with fighting COVID-19. So these are the findings that we've had. The key patent holders, obviously, we have there Shanghai Bo gene development, BioWindow gene development, big players in the field. And then if we actually look at the jurisdictions, where is this IP held? And you can see that over 50% of it is in China, which begs the question. I mean, China's been very active in the IP antiviral drug market, or antiviral IP. Looking also here in the number of patents that are held in each jurisdiction, you can see by far that this company, Shanghai Bo Gene Development, is very active in the Chinese market and Chinese IP and claiming IP. And then, of course, looking at the number of filings over time, you can see that the greatest interest was in 2001. And I'm pretty sure we can relate that to something that happened in 2001, the reason why a lot of this IP was being filed for in 2001 with the first IP in China. So if we have our first question here for Wendy, then the question is, what are some of the challenges that you face when working with pharmaceutical companies entering a new market?
Well, I think it's really important for companies that are looking to enter into a new market to really understand the competitive landscape, and doing a good prior art search will help to establish what the landscape looks like at that point in time. Obviously understanding that there's often a lag in filings that are made and things that are in the published domain, including both patent applications that publish as well as literature. So I think it's always a challenge to keep on top of the landscape, and doing a single search is usually not enough. But when you do look to enter into a new field, you definitely want to understand where the holes might be that can be filled by your company. And it's very hard to know that if you don't do a pretty thorough search. So it's something that I encourage my clients to do. I'm now with I started my own firm, and I help small companies with this sort of thing a lot. And we do a lot of these kinds of preliminary searches to establish what the landscape looks like. And then we can look at what the company is doing and try to figure out how best to take advantage of whatever white space there might be in the IP.
Thank you very much, Wendy. I think that was thoroughly answered for the person who asked it. Let us move right along here with regards to our searching checklist. Of course, this is a checklist that we put together for just kind of something to keep in mind when you're preparing for a search and in the middle of conducting a search. Of course, first and foremost, having a game plan. And this searching checklist will give you a game plan, really, that can be followed to help in being able to conduct a thorough search. Of course, first and foremost, determining the type of search, determining where the search needs to be conducted, whether there are certain jurisdictions that need to be included or excluded, non-patent literature, whether that's important or not, and where this non-patent literature is going to come from. The familiarity with the databases, well over 2,000 databases to choose from. How do you know which database that you need to go into that will have the relevant art? And sometimes have some hidden databases that you may not expect to find relevant art, but sometimes will. Biotechnology, believe it or not, you can find some great art in IEEE, which is usually an electrical engineering database. But you'll find some really, really good art with regards to medical devices, imaging devices, and those kind of things. So that's something to keep in mind there of the database selection and the importance of it. Putting together your keywords, classification codes, and then understanding how each database is able to input and take those those search terms and classification codes. So let's jump right into the next section that we have here. This delay is killing me. The search strategies. How do you find keywords? How do you bring search preview and in the middle of your search? How do you bring it into focus if you're seeing a lot of noise? And then the result review when you're actually putting together the final report and deciphering and filtering out. So of course, some issues that you'll see that are encountered very regularly is finding out and using the appropriate key terms. How do you find the key terms? And sometimes key terms and terms will have different meanings depending on their context and how innovation can sometimes change how a term is used. I'm sure that happens in your fields all the time. And then there are the language barriers, and that's usually due to machine translated in text, foreign text into English. And every language, of course, has its own construction of sentences. So you cannot really conduct a search with finding terms within certain proximity of each other as you can use in the English databases that are usually searched as well. So of course, some great resources that will really, really help with conducting some preliminary research. Wikipedia is a good place to start. Believe it or not, looking at other patents that are related are a great place to find terms that are used in the art that you can actually incorporate into your search strategy. And then what I find is extremely helpful are the technology-specific databases. Looking at these databases that are written by the experts for the experts, and they tend to be written very differently than a patent and very differently than a journal, for example, a journal article. So we have a question for Eric. Mr. Eric, are there any databases that you would consider as go-to databases when you're just doing your background information gathering? Some secret database in your pocket that you like to use that you'd like to share with the attendees today?
Let's see. I would say first and foremost, I'd like to jump in the USPTO's own database, both for Boolean searching, for assignee searching. I'd like to use the patent scope from WIPO, PCT, because that identifies families when you have patents with relatives in various jurisdictions. I'd like to use that patent scope under WIPO. Derwent, I believe Derwent is ideal for some of the non-patent literature, but I tend to focus on the patent databases, patent references first, and sort of branch out from there.
Yes, agreed. And I believe that we spoke about EAST before and extensive use of EAST. Now I know EAST is also has been expanded to be able to be logged into through local libraries as well. So I know that you used to have to go to the patent office in Alexandria to use EAST in the public search room, but they've expanded that access to a lot of local libraries as well across the country. So that's also another database that's very, very helpful and hopefully not too far away.
Yeah, absolutely.
So here's a quick example that we put together with being able to capture terms that are not necessarily always easy to find. So COVID-19, if you're going to conduct a search for COVID-19, some of the terms that you can come up with very quickly, you can throw them in Google, coronavirus, COVID-19, and you'll probably find some really good art. You'll find some relevant art. But looking into the details here, there are many aspects that are unique to the COVID-19 virus that are essential for conducting a search. And so these are some of the terms that we found that are very, very relevant when conducting a search for COVID-19. Now, even though you can see there hydroxychloroquine is used as a synonym, it's not necessarily a synonym for coronavirus or COVID-19, but sometimes you will find art that doesn't mention what it's curing, but will mention the drug that is being used to cure. So that's, well, not necessarily what is the drug that's being used to cure, but a drug that's under study for this issue. And so here is a quick image of what it looks like and some of the different aspects of the COVID-19 virus. And so looking at the actual results that after the search terms have been incorporated and put into the databases, and previewing those sets of initial results. Some of the issues you may encounter are too many results to review, poor quality of results, and those usually go hand in hand. And that's usually due to certain terms that are very vague, that are bringing in a lot of noise. And we're going to get into an example of that in the next couple of slides. The primary solutions that we're offering, obviously, is to focus the keywords. And that does not necessarily mean to take out a term that's bringing in a lot of noise. It's never a good practice. You want to keep it in there, but link it to something that brings it into relevancy. And you can do that by having an additional set of strings that can be used for this purpose, that are prepared ahead of time, that are used to narrow down these terms that are extremely vague and bring the results into focus, and not necessarily take results out that have very vague terminology by using those terms purposely. Now, Wendy, if we could go back to you, I'm pretty sure that you've worked or found art in the past that has purposely used these sort of vague terms to kind of quote unquote hide that idea, whether it's a publication or it's a patent. What is it like being able to help your clients, for example, navigate the IT field when you know that there is these potential infringements that are out there, or potential freedom to operate obstacles for certain clients, when there are these hidden pieces of art that are that are available?
I mean, it's a good question, and it's actually a pretty difficult problem, and it doesn't have a simple solution. But I think what you do is you look at what you do come up with and start honing your search terms to try to find things that seem like essential elements to what you're trying to search. I think it's often valuable to try to search in different ways. So if you're dealing with a composition of matter, you can be searching some of either the entire structure or some portion of the structure together with keywords, and try to combine things together in a way that you're trying to really get an accurate view of the entire landscape. But it's not always easy, and the terminology sometimes is different from one company to another. Certain targets, for instance, have 10 different names, and all you can do is just keep at it, keep adding terms as you come up with new terms, and really trying to just canvas as much as you can. But I think none of these searches are ever going to be perfect. And so you have to accept that and always continue to look as you develop a program to make sure that you're picking things up. I actually find that my scientists have other ways of looking for things, and they can sometimes come up with ideas too. So maybe going beyond just talking to legal people, to really talk to the scientists about what they see in the literature, alternate terms or terminology that you can use in your own searches.
I completely agree. And I'm pretty sure that we've both encountered these hidden sets of prior art that sometimes will surprise you, that the lack of relevant terms that they will use, but are actually extremely relevant to what we're looking for. We have another question here from Lisa Reed, and the question is, what makes searching for biotechnical different from other fields? Are there certain types of strategies or methods or that need to be considered that wouldn't be applied to other fields? Would anyone like to take that? Maybe Tim, we haven't heard from you so far today. Eric?
I would love to chime in. I'm more on the medical device side of things. I know from colleagues that the biotech searches are more challenging in that really looking at the text as opposed to the structural, the images, the pictures, for lack of a better term. And as Wendy pointed out, a lot of times there are different terms that different applicants use, and it makes it a little more difficult to find things when searching.
Agreed. And from with regards to what I've realized and what I incorporate here for the prior art searches, specifically in biotechnology, is that biotechnology is one of those fields that combines a lot of different technologies into one. There are so many different aspects that are incorporated into every single type of biotechnology related project, that you have to really think outside the box, as Wendy mentioned, and think of other aspects that may be in there that need to be incorporated. For example, these PCR machines that are being used, and I have an example of that coming up in the following slides. They're not necessarily only covering biotechnology. They have aspects of them that that cover mechanical engineering and electrical engineering. And so you really have to be extremely adaptable. And then on the other side of when you're looking at pharmaceutical compositions and extremely narrow type of fields like that, we have common terminology that is used in everyday language to refer to some of these compounds or drugs or medicines. But if you really look into the composition of them and what it makes to make them, you'll find a laundry list of terms that are relevant, that need to be incorporated. There are, salts and marketed names and compound names, chemical names, so many different names that are out there that refer to the exact same thing. And so that's one of the things that I've realized when searching biotechnology, that can be you need to have a lot of adjustability in comparison to, let's say, a mechanical that's usually pretty straightforward. So let us move right along here to our context matters. And this is the example that we mentioned, where you can have a term in your search strategy that can bring you in a lot of noise. And with regards to COVID-19, something that is being under study right now are the attachment of the virus to cells using these spike proteins. But if you put spike protein into a database, you're going to get a lot of relevant results, and then you're going to also get a lot of noise as well from that term spike. And sometimes even protein. I mean, protein can be used to refer to many different uses of protein, and some of them are, these milkshakes after working out and that kind of thing. But in this particular example, let's take a look at the term spike, and putting spike in there, you can have results that come back that have to do with a barb or a skewer or a stake, or even athletic shoes have spikes. So how do you bring that into focus? Being more narrow in terms of what that spike protein is. Looking at the spike host cell receptor, spike protein GRP78. So bringing those terms into your strategy can really, really help narrow down on these type of context matters that you're going to be receiving. And that's what the spike protein looks like. And that's from the NCBI site, where they're studying the spike protein attachment to the cell. Okay. So as we mentioned, context matters. If you're seeing too much noise, including other features, the disclosure, the use is another very helpful set of terms that you can have to link to these vague terms. So we're going to talk very, very quickly about classification codes. We mentioned search terms and keywords a lot. Classification codes are of equal importance. The strategy that I was always following for prior art searching, and it may seem redundant, but it is extremely helpful in locating the relevant prior art, is conducting the search in a 3-iteration process, searching key terms on their own, searching classification codes on their own, because you can find classifications that are narrow enough that you can actually combine together and find, give me all these documents that have all these classification codes, and you'll find them to be extremely relevant. And then the last and third iteration is the most focused one that usually gets you the best prior art the first time around, and that's the combination of keywords and classification codes. And then that way you're telling the system, get me pieces of art that have these terms and these classification codes, and you're usually right to the point with that strategy. But of course, with the U.S. patent classifications, the incorporation of the cooperative patent classifications put together by the European Patent Office and the U.S. Patent Office, based off the international patent classifications that we use. So you have multiple classification codes that you can use. They're still all relevant and active. You can use only U.S. classifications, but it's always a good idea to find the equivalents of each. So find the U.S. classification, find the equivalent IPC, find the equivalent cooperative patent classification. But we won't spend too much time on classification searching. Of course, with foreign patents, we mentioned the machine translation and even sometimes human translation for non-native English speakers can be difficult to be able to narrow down on the search results. So of course, you have to give more leeway of how far terms can be from each other. Timothy, are you still on the phone with us? Okay, we might have lost. All right, let's get into the databases. We'll spend just a little bit of time on the databases. Eric, I know you mentioned some of your favorite databases that you like to use. We've just put together a short list here of the different tools that are available. And of course, some of them are meant to be very helpful in finding some immediate prior art to give you an idea of what's already out there. In this case, we're giving you the free databases, and then we're going to get into some of the subscription type of databases and their capabilities. So of course, PatentScope, eSpaceNet, Free Patents Online, Google Patents, available and free online for everyone to use. And you can see the different capabilities from each one. PatentScope, of course, has all the coverage, so does eSpaceNet or SpaceNet, depending on how you like to call it. So you can see full coverage there, and product family coverage included as well. So these might be helpful to help in the future of doing some background information gathering. Now, if we move on to the next slide, where we can see what they're actually able to do, you can see the forward and backward citation is supported in every single one, but eSpaceNet or SpaceNet, as some people like to call it, very, very helpful tool. However, proximity operators, truncation, keyword highlighting, and user-defined highlighting are not available. And also with regards to saving your results, exporting your searches is not supported, neither is importing your list of references. But let's keep in mind that they are completely free. We can't be too harsh to them. The subscription databases we're going to be highlighting for this particular section are Patseer, Orbit, Zero Innovation, and Relecura. Very, very helpful databases that have full coverage of all the different patent entities, along with being updated weekly and in product family coverage. You're able to search all the US, the international, and the cooperative patent classifications, proximity operators, Boolean operators. These are things that are of importance when you're searching, are supported in every single one of them. So move right along here. So at this point, we'll give you the verbal passphrase for attending the CLE today. And the verbal passphrase is wonderful panel is the verbal passphrase. So please write that verbal passphrase down, send us an email to the email address that's on your screen, and we will send you a certificate of attendance. Once we receive the okay to give the CLE credits, we will send you the CLE credits with that as well. So the verbal passphrase is a wonderful panel. Since we're running low on time, we're going to continue with the searching by technology. And this is the section that I think everyone's been waiting for. So this may answer also some of the questions that we've seen. Medical devices, highly advanced field, always changing on a regular basis. And as mentioned earlier, there are many different aspects within the field. There's biology, there's chemistry, there's electrical engineering, mechanical engineering. There's a lot of physics and mathematics in there as well. There's diagnostic machines, there's lab testing, implant, remote surgical machines. So very, very advanced field that is changing on a regular basis. So let's take a quick look at these medical devices, and in particular, we're looking at surgical instruments. And these are the classification codes that we find to be a very, very good starting point with regards to these medical devices, surgical instruments. But let's take a little bit of a closer look. And this is one of the machines that is actually on the news quite a bit nowadays, the reverse transcription polymerase chain reaction machine. And this is the one that they're using to actually do the testing to see who has the COVID-19 virus. And so there are multiple aspects to this machine. Of course, you have the electrical motor, there's display, and these are elements that are outside of biology that are also of interest of how it works. And then you have your medical implants, where you can have tailored treatment, not a one-size-fits-all approach. Precise implantation of these devices. There are tools that you use to introduce these devices. And then the reaction of the body to these implants. So these are all things that need to be considered when conducting a search in that field. So here are the medical implant classes that we believe are extremely helpful. Eric, since you are very, very familiar with medical implants, are there any tips that you'd like to share with us regarding the different databases and the different approaches that you may feel are very helpful to keep in mind?
Sure, Amir. I typically like to really understand the invention, the target of the search as much as possible prior to beginning it or to sending it out to an advantage or a searcher. So before even getting to the point of doing the search, I like to really try to pick the client's brain and get as much information about not only the invention, but about the commercial landscape, the competitors. Typically like to include assignee searches if there are any competitors, even if it's not necessarily for those business reasons, just to know who the big players in the field are, and really just assemble as much information as possible and either use that if I'm doing a search, a formal search online or something, or to pass that on to you, for instance, to the searcher, which I've done in the past. I've identified obviously the target, the subject matter of the search, of course, but also the competitors and if there are any especially relevant patents to use as a starting point. I will identify those. A lot of the time, my experience has been that I'll find what looks like a relevant reference and then spider that and see what's cited in those references and use those. I mean, I found relevant a patent portfolio. So really just goes back to being as prepared and gathering as much information as possible from the outset, and then jumping in and using the tools to identify the different databases and working, yeah, sort of keeping the big picture in mind. That's the approach I often take.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
I mean, does that have any specific relevance with medical devices? You know, I think that's applicable to any field of search, any technical field. I mean, I just happen to be experienced with medical devices and just know within certain industries who the big players are, which companies are very active and sort of the go-to, for instance, on an assignee search. But
Mm-hmm.
working with the client, the company, or the doctor, whoever it is whose invention it is, they're really the best source of information from the start for me to identify where and what I want to look at, what to focus on.
Okay. I think we have a follow-up actually that just came in with regards to medical implants specifically. Is it helpful to do image searching? Eric? I think we may have a choppy connection.
Image?
Yes, image searching. Have you ever found it to be helpful?
Image searching. I have relied on images. You know, it's for mechanical medical devices. It's tricky, like we were discussing before, because an element of an invention of a device or a machine or an implant can be called many different things. And so I think the images, the figures, really sort of help you help supplement the search. And if there's a specific structure you're looking for, it might be easier to locate in the figures, in the images. I've done work on design patents, getting design patents for clients on medical devices. So certainly there, that would be an instance where you're almost exclusively looking at the images when you do the search.
Right.
So I think it's a combination approach. I wouldn't isolate it to images alone, be outside of the exclusive for design patents. I would rely on both the images and the text to sort of complement each other when I'm doing a search for medical devices.
Agreed. So this is our last section here with biotechnology. We're going to look very specifically at genetic sequences. Genetic sequences, unlike most of the other biotechnological fields, are very straightforward. Sequences are searched and found and posted as nucleic acids and proteins, different chains. And so obviously the nucleotides make up the DNA sequences. Amino acids are the resultant proteins. Every three makes one protein. And so every three nucleotide sequence. Highly specialized area, of course, but the good thing about it is the fact that it is very straightforward to search. When it comes to the classification codes, obviously 435, 436 are the main classification codes. There are a lot of overlap with different areas that are incorporated there. Some of the databases that are extremely helpful. NCBI has the ability to let you search genetic sequences. AmLaw is another great one from the European Molecular Biology Lab. DDBJ, which is the DNA data bank of Japan. And PatSeq is a wonderful tool for searching genetic sequences. So some of these other resources that are available, DGene, USGene, TCTGene, and Registry, all allow you to search. Now, Registry does allow you to search, but you cannot search the longer sequences in there. There is a limit to how many nucleotides a search can have, or proteins for that matter. But it's great for searching oligomers, for example, short strings. So of course, when preparing a sequence search, being able to conduct the search with the specific databases, in this case, we're looking at BLAST from NCBI. And you can see the highlighted sections there, the bolded text, are finding you the oligomers that actually matched with the requirement of the sequence. So of course, you can go in there and put the sequence in the database and then tell the database exactly what you would like to search the sequence against, whether you're looking at a nucleotide versus nucleotide search, where you're looking for matches there, or if you're looking for a nucleotide versus a protein match. And there are 3 different frames there, forward and then backward, which gives you the 6 frames. And then the opposite applies when you can conduct searches of proteins versus proteins and proteins versus the nucleic acids. So very straightforward type of searching. It's forward and backward. You can look at the results and rank them in order directly there, and it shows you the percentage matches, the overall match, the certain section match if you're looking for a specific section of contiguous nucleotide per nucleotide match, or nucleotide versus protein match. And so preparing the sequence is, of course, a very straightforward process. Different resources that are available out there to prepare sequences. In this case, we're looking at Patentability, and that gives you a pretty much breakdown of how you can prepare sequences. They give you the database where you can download the software, which allows you to prepare the sequence. You plug the sequence into the text box that is available at the top there, and it prepares the sequence for you and places them in order and links each sequence with the seq ID number in order for finding. And that's what a sequence listing looks like. So this is for one sequence. 210 there, as you can see, is the seq ID identification number. So let's move right on here. We do have a question actually for Wendy. Wendy, when it comes to, the question is, with a very active research and development in life sciences field currently, do you believe uncertainty in what is patentable in the US as an obstacle that could affect the commercialization of diagnostics, therapeutics, vaccines for COVID-19?
Yeah, I mean, that's, it's a moving target. And yes, I do worry, but when you think about the importance of this, area of development, I would think that we're going to find a lot of support from the Patent Office in terms of trying to provide some kind of commercial benefit to companies that are developing solutions to this, really horrible pandemic that we're in. So, although I would agree, particularly around the diagnostic area, there's just been a lot of, issues around whether something is patentable at all, it's patentable subject matter at all. I have a lot of hope that in this situation, we're going to see some softening of those positions when it comes to COVID-19 R&D.
Agreed. And I've seen one of the drug manufacturers that actually has said that they will not enforce infringement of their drug during COVID-19 that we have right now. So they have given.
Yeah, I think we're going to be seeing a lot of changes in positions because everyone is doing everything humanly possible to try to address this situation. So I don't think the Patent Office is going to create unnecessary bars. That's not to say that it might not go back after all of this is said and done, but I think for this period of time, we're not going to be seeing a lot of 101 type issues around diagnostics and other things. I just think it would be wrong, and they're not going to do that. And as you were saying, Amir, I think companies that have patent positions that otherwise could be a bar to companies developing products for COVID-19, I think we're going to see a lot of cooperation and not a lot of litigation type stances.
Agreed. Thank you, Wendy. So let's go ahead and get through our last section here. And this section is really intended to just go over the different categories of a search report, what needs to be in there, and what really is important when requesting a search in terms of being able to convey all the elements that are of importance. And that will result in a better search at the very end with the reports. So what are the components of a search report? And then we'll show you a quick example of our search reports. And so, of course, a search report needs to highlight the relevant information. It saves you review time when you actually receive the report back. It gives you a highlighted section, shows you where the matching terms and elements that were requested are available in each prior art reference that was uncovered. It provides everything in an organized fashion, giving you tables broken down by relevancy, and then, of course, giving you all the publication information. As an added plus, of course, adding all the suitable drawings and illustrations. What we like to do at Legal Advantage is also provide you a copy of each patent that came back as a match. Makes your life easier when reviewing the results, being able to open up that patent and see the result in the patent and being able to locate where it is in the actual patent. Of course, giving you the keyword sets, the search strings, the classification codes that were used as well. So let's take a quick look at a search report. And I'm not going to spend too much time on here. We're going to highlight the key information pieces. And then, of course, we do want to speak to our panel. We do have more questions for our panel. So with regards to our patentability search, you can see very quickly what type of search this is, the title of the invention, the date that the search was provided, and then some important information. The search includes the following aspect. This is what the search went out to look for. These are the elements that were of importance. And then a quick summary of the art that was uncovered. We uncovered 10 patent references, 2 non-patent references. Following that is a breakdown of the details of the search, the date that the search was conducted, the period of the search, if there were any date limitations, the databases that were incorporated, and then a list of the major concepts, along with some of the keywords that were used to capture each concept. And so this is where you're taking a concept, finding all the relevant keywords, expanding on them to be able to capture all of the art. So we give you that in the very beginning of the report, followed by a table of results. Table of results will give you all of the results in order of relevancy, giving you the patent numbers, the publication numbers, the title, the publication or issue date, the assignee or applicant information, and then the inventor information as well. Following the table is a excerpt of each result. So from there, we will show you which section of that result matched with the key elements that are of importance. And we will highlight that for you in the text. Again, providing you the publication information, the title, publication or patent number, the title, and the issue and publication date. Following the patent results are the non-patent literature results. I'm just waiting here for the slide to change. Network delay. Now, with your non-patent literature results, again, providing you the publication information, the source that was found, the link to the actual website where this piece of prior art was found. You gotta hit the button one too many times. Okay, so it gives you the title of the non-patent literature result, the URL where this was actually found, so you can click on it and go out and see the actual document, along with the publication information, who the authors are, where it came from. And then with that being said, a highlighting of the text that came back as a positive match from that particular result. Now, when it comes to requesting a search and providing information to be able to get a search conducted, the most helpful pieces of information to convey are obviously any illustrations, any figures that are drawn and labeled if possible, clarifying certain issues with regards to the search, any possible prior art, and if there is possible prior art that you already have, what is it missing? What needs to be the focus of the search? What do we need to find that you don't have already? Conveying the point of novelty and understanding the elements that are of importance. Novelty obviously going for the patentability searches, but the litigation type of search is, of course, making sure that for a freedom to operate, we understand what are the key elements, what are the jurisdictions for an invalidity, what are the claims that are of importance here, priority dates if they apply, and then, of course, the jurisdictions that are of importance. And that will get you at least going in the right direction for a prior art search that may be of use and of greatest help. And so we have another question. Would there be any significant differences to report directed towards the USPTO and EPO? So I think this could be asked to any one of our panel members. Is there a difference with regards to the reports that are directed to the USPTO and the European Patent Office with regards to responding to their office actions and providing them with the back and forth to their office actions? What are some of the major differences there?
So this is Tim. I can chime in on that. I don't think that there's necessarily, big differences between how you would be responding to it, or the type of art that you'd be seeing coming out of either patent office. Sometimes it seems that Europe has a bit better handle on digging deeper into some of the art. You might get more robust objections when you're, looking at that jurisdiction compared to the U.S. But usually it's pretty similar and not a big difference.
Thank you, Tim.
This is Eric. Just to chime in, I mean, when filing PCT applications, for instance, in the United States as a receiving office, strategically, the EPO may have done a more thorough job than the USPTO examiners, or just to get a different set of eyes, a search that's coming from Europe to sort of complement and may have different results than USPTO examiner when the PCT application is filed, is nationalized in the US, regardless of whether it goes into Europe ultimately. I think one thing you have to be careful for is in Europe, I don't believe medical, surgical methods or processes are patentable, so that might contribute to the difference. But other than that, I mean, I think you're basically going to get probably similar results, I would think. Maybe once upon a time, it was European, the EPO would have more European foreign references, and the USPTO would have more domestic, more US references. But I don't think that's the case anymore with how globally realized all the searching tools are.
Thank you for the insight, Tim and Eric. So we've come up with some easy questions for the panel now. We've reached the end of our presentation, and so just want to engage with the panel just a little bit and just give us your advice and your opinions of some of these questions that are on the screen there. What are the most difficult hurdles that you can encounter when protecting biotechnology, navigating the field of biotechnology?
Hey, this is Tim again. I'll take that one first. I think that for the biotech stuff that I work on, which is kind of, the crossroads of biotech and mechanical technologies, catheters, things of that nature, and implants, it's really the incremental change. I mean, that area is very saturated, but there's still, inventions being made every day, but it's, small tweaks here and there. So it's really finding, that white space and where you need to steer your claims to be able to fit within the references technology that's already out there. So that's kind of the difficult thing, is just finding those small nuances and addressing the incremental change in the technology.
Great. Thank you, Timothy. I think, Eric, you already answered the following question: where is your most useful art already found, and any surprising resources? I think you've already shared that with us. Wendy, would you like to answer the next one? Tell us about how the IP you've worked on increases the quality of life for this globe in general. And I know you have quite a bit of experience in that.
Well, I mean, I think there's a balance. Obviously we all, we love science and we love seeing science develop for the sake of technology being advanced. But ultimately, companies are in business to make money, and the way they make money is to have strong intellectual property. So I think doing these searches and making sure that we do the best job that we can in developing strong intellectual property allows these companies to have sufficient profit motive to allow technology to develop at a much more rapid pace than it would otherwise. So I think that the IP that my clients work on, it's moving technology forward, therapeutics, diagnostics, medical devices, new uses of old drugs, just everything you can imagine. But everything, I mean, literally everything is driven by the strength of the intellectual property that we're able to develop for them. So I do believe that it starts with really understanding where your IP fits into the greater landscape and helping these companies to navigate the IP that's already out there and talk with companies about where they're going with theirs and develop really strong IP that is going to endure. I mean, having strong life cycle management strategies to make sure that it's just not a one and done kind of patent filing, that they have a strategy for developing more IP over time to bring a longer patent life to the products that they're developing. So I do believe that what we do is incredibly important for advancing technology, and it is, science is wonderful, but I think without IP, it's just not going to be developed very effectively.
Thank you very much, Wendy. Great insight. Definitely some great insight. Mr. Eric, how has working from home affected your productivity? I know from a personal standpoint, once the lockdowns went into place, we have seen definitely a decrease in filings. We've seen a decrease in patentability searches, for example, that are directed towards new filings. How has it affected your productivity working from home?
Sure. Well, I'm fortunate that before all started, I did the bulk of my work from home already, so it wasn't really an adjustment for me. My productivity has been about the same. Given that, I think there has been a sort of a downward trend in the work itself, and that's just because everyone's working from home, everyone's impacted by this. I've had clients that sort of have said, if it's not essential, let's just hold off for now until this we're clear of this. So that has, of course, directly impacted me, and I guess in turn indirectly to take advantage of any other vendors that I use as a result of increasing that work. But in terms of productivity, in terms of the work that I am lucky enough to have, I don't really think there's been much of a change or an impact, because again, I'm working from home for close to a year now, so maybe I'm lucky in that respect.
Maybe. Thank you, Eric. Wendy, would you like to take us off on the last one here? Any advice for your peers and the others that are with us today?
Well, I mean, I always have advice.
I would love to hear it.
I mean, I honestly do believe that developing strong IP starts with a good understanding of where your invention fits into the greater intellectual property landscape, which does start with a good, thorough search of the of the published literature, both patent and non-patent literature. I think some clients, particularly the smaller companies, tend to balk a little bit on the price of investing in a search early on, but I do encourage them to do that and at least get a preliminary search done so that they can have some comfort that the money that they're going to spend in developing IP, including patent drafting, which can be quite pricey, is going to be money well spent. I also encourage companies not to leave it there, that periodically they should update those searches to understand where things are headed and maybe even get some ideas about developing further IP of their own. I mean, ultimately, the type of searching that we end up doing is in the freedom to operate area. Usually the technology has to be developed to a certain point where you can effectively do a freedom to operate search, but again, you can do some preliminary searching, and I find that working with Legal Advantage in particular, the price for doing these types of searches is not prohibitive, and it's usually money that's very worthwhile spending, so that you can have comfort that the bigger dollars that you're going to be spending on your R&D programs is actually going towards something that can actually be commercialized by the company.
Thank you very much, Wendy. Timothy, would you like to give us any advice?
Yeah, I think that just goes back to kind of what Wendy was touching on, what Eric had touched on earlier in the talk too, is that you can't really control the quality of the invention disclosures that you get coming in through the door, right? But you can control what you're doing in terms of the questions that you're asking the inventors, or even sometimes, if you can get in touch with the business folks too, they provide great insight for, competitors can let you know where you need to go in terms of a search. So take hold of that responsibility. It's up to you to get that information that you need to get a good search request submitted, and then to get those results back and really dig down and see where you need to go with each individual invention.
Thank you very much, Timothy. Mr. Eric, any final pieces of advice for all of us with you today?
Yeah, I mean, I just echo what the others in the panel said, and just it's really seeing clients kind of don't understand, don't get the big picture and the importance of a search and budgeting for a search. I'm talking about more the patentability side, and it's important to really educate them and explain that you don't spend tens of thousands of dollars on preparing an application and prosecution, and then find out 3 years from now that what you've got really isn't patentable. So I stress that, I tell stories about that, and that doing a search is vital, is crucial for that and so many other reasons. That's the advice I would give on just to really get clients focused and educating about the importance of prior art searching and patent searching in general before doing anything else.
Thank you very much for the insight, Eric. We have concluded our session. Are there any final things that you would like to share with us, anyone? I think we've made up for the lost time. Is there anything else that our panel would like to share, Wendy, Eric, or Timothy?
Yeah, I just hope everybody is staying safe and, stay home.
Thank you.
Be safe.
Timothy? Thank you. Yeah, we have to keep this holding pattern and continue trying our best, and hopefully we'll be out of this sooner than we hope, or sooner than we are expecting. I think that's what everyone is. Fingers crossed. We all do our job, and we'll get out of this. Thank you so much, Wendy, Eric, and Timothy, for joining us today. We really, really do appreciate it for you spending time with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amir.
Thank you. And
thanks a bunch.
Look forward to speak. Thank you very much. We look forward to talking to every single one of you soon. Thank you so much.